like, but I remember also being taken to the day before my death, and he asked me, he's like, what do you see? And I'm like, I have 3 children. They are around my death. I had 2 girls and a boy. My husband had already passed, but I was content with that. And I just remember feeling the love and not dying alone and dying happily.
Welcome to the Uncaged Mindset Podcast, where we talk all things spiritual awakening and we interview the light workers who are out there radiating their light. But before I introduce my first amazing guest today, please take a moment and smash that like button and subscribe. We're building a community of light and everyone is invited. Okay, I am so excited today to introduce my amazing guest. She is a clinical hypnotherapist, past life regression specialist, Reiki master, ceremonial facilitator, NLP coach, intuitive sound bath practitioner, just to name a few among many things. She helps people during their awakening process. And one of the ways that she does that is through past life regression therapy. She believes that understanding these past experiences and lifetimes can not only provide enrichment in our current lifetime, but that it is vital spiritual work. Please help me welcome the amazing, the magical, my friend, Grawben Corona. Welcome.
Thank you, Charles. That was a beautiful introduction. Thank you. Thank you for having me on your podcast.
Oh, I've been wanting to have you on the podcast like since forever, and you were part of like the plan to start the podcast with you. So. Speaking of past life, like now, future life, current, we're making it a reality.
Oh gosh. Yeah. It's all about the right here and right now, right?
I know. So I got to get grounded, which you've actually helped me with do before. You've helped me get grounded. You've helped me get myself centered. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about presence. We can't talk about the present without the past. I don't know, where would you like to start, friend? Tell us your journey. How did you get here? How did you get into past life regression, hypnotherapy? How did that find your life? Because you're also a behavior therapist too. And you're working with the subconscious. So tell us your story. I'll stop now.
Oh gosh. Well, how far back do I want to take it? But okay, so I grew up very religious and not like I am now, not completely, spiritual. I grew up very religion based, very by the book, like this is what you're going to believe. That was my program growing up. It was like, it's like we're programmed. It's like, this is your name. This is where you're going to live. This is where you're going to go to school. This is what you're going to believe. So my belief system was programmed at a very young age to culturally obey and go to church and, serve and do all these things. And that was clearly not in the bigger picture of my life's work. I always knew that I wanted to help people. I wanted to inspire people and just to uplift people. But I did not know that in order to have that wisdom and that knowing, man, do you have to go through some stuff? And it's interesting because I always used to pray for wisdom, and with wisdom comes a lot of hard lessons. So I stopped asking for that. So anyway, so back to the question. I grew up, like I said, very, very narrow-minded about a lot of things. And I was living for other people. I was living to please mom, dad, please society, fit that cookie cutter mold, that, we grew up, some of us in certain little societies grew up in a very small town, not Los Angeles. I'm a transplant here. So I grew up in very little rural community. And I grew up going to Catholic school. I was one of the only chocolate chips in the cookie in a very predominantly Caucasian school. So my whole life was doing things by the book. And I think as I know now, it's like the things that you don't get met during developmental stages of life, they start to roll over into the next stage of life. It snowballs, and then you don't realize, wow, you're living for other people. And then I had a experience that blew open my consciousness at Disneyland when I got drugged and took an edible, and completely blew open my auric field. I was already highly gifted before that. I just didn't know that I had gifts, and I always felt very different. But I didn't know how to hone in on those gifts, nor was I guided to, except for an aunt who saw it at a very young age. But because I grew up very religious, and she was the rebel of the family of 11 on my mom's side, but she was the rebel of the family. And because my mom and my dad were very religious, my mom, when my aunt tried to teach me these ancient healing traditions of like tarot and reading the coffee mug and things like that and using herbs, my mom was just, I remember my aunt told me, go get a notebook, I'm going to show you. And my mom in the kitchen, as I was so excited to go back outside to the backyard on our picnic bench that we had out there to like start learning, my mom stopped me and said, we're Catholic. I know she's your aunt, but just respect her and be respectful. She's like, but those are not our beliefs. And I just remember feeling like, because finally I had the moment of like, oh my gosh, like this is, it just sparked me up. But I just remember being like, nah. So it took me time as an adult to reopen those gifts and learn those gifts or those healing abilities that I had that she saw in me, which I truly believe she saw something. She's passed now, but I still connect with her all the time. But yeah, I had to go through my own healing of PTSD from that Disneyland experience that completely blew open my consciousness at a time where I was not, I don't know if I would say ready, because obviously everything is unfolding as it should in its exact timing, but I did not know how to handle everything because it sent me down a spiral of PTSD because I could hear so many things around me. I could sense everybody's energy around me. I couldn't tell reality from not. I felt like I had no sense of time. I tried to heal from that with doctors and the traditional route, and that did not help me. And I just felt labeled, and I could feel them judging me. I could feel, I just could read people's, my doctors, my psychiatrist, psychologist. And it wasn't until I went to a women's empowerment event and found a hypnotherapist that I struck a conversation with. Just gave me her business card, said, if there's ever anything you want to work on, let me know. Never really knew about hypnotherapy other than that it was a modality, some kind of psychology, and looked at her website and was like, this is it, this burst out into tears. And it was a divine intervention, and I enrolled in the school, and here I am. So, and now I've learned to do those things and manifest all those little things that I told myself I wanted to do. But now I realize that, along the way, I had to kind of go through some stuff of my own in order to be really able to help heal people, A healer is somebody who helps themselves heal themselves. We don't have any magic powers. We just have a lot of wisdom from going through our own trials and tribulations and facing our own shadows.
Shadows. Grawben, thank you for sharing that, because what you touched on right now with the shadow work is it's so important, but it can also be very painful. And to feel like you found yourself, because it seems like you found yourself again, and then, at a young age, it was kind of taken away from you, by, which is your identity, which is part of you, which is your light being your sovereignty, really, and then finding that again, and then having this kind of awakening, basically an awakening moment, an ascension moment. And people talk about, the spiritual awakening. Spiritual awakening is a buzzword right now, in this age of Aquarius and like the new age movement, like, oh, awakening. I mean, I Uncaged Mindset, my channel, is all about awakening tools, and that's exciting stuff. But what we don't talk about is that it can be hard and harsh, that the awakening process can be painful. And it's not just like emotional pain, it can be physically painful too.
Absolutely. And that's what I tell my clients in the first session. It's like, people think that sometimes that spiritual awakening is all like, zen. And it's like you're literally in fetal position on the floor, crying your eyes out, like having to face all of these things, because it's like sometimes you're the one in your family lineage who is stepping up to finally do the work. And it's like all your ancestors on the other side are finally like, yes, like somebody finally stepped up to do the work, and it is you. And I always tell them, I'm like, congratulations, you are the chosen one. And they're like, it's so hard. And I'm like, you got this. I'm like your cheerleader. And I'm like, I've been there. I'm like, it's you, baby. It is you.
Wow. I want to have an awakening every day just so that I can hear that.
I know. I just love seeing the transformation in people that, I sometimes people call me and they're just like, I'm like, oh, hey, how's it going? And they're just like, I'm great. I'm sorry, it's not one of those calls. And I'm like, oh, okay.
But I'm the chosen one. Wow. So, well, if I may ask you a little bit about your clients and the work that you do, why, obviously you've had success with your clients, but why do clients come to you in general? Why do they seek out a hypnotherapy session? And more specifically, why would clients seek out a past life regression therapy session with you?
I tend to attract a lot of people who find me as a last resort when traditional methods have not worked for them. I work right now. I am privately contracted with a therapy center, a big one in LA. And I'm kind of like the unicorn of the clinic. They send me their clients that they have not had success with, or clients who ask for alternative healing methods. And then they're just like, okay. And they'll work with me as an adjunct to their traditional talk therapy sessions. And the therapist in our weekly meetings will be like, you had one session with them. I've been seeing them for years. They came in completely transformed. Like, what did you do? So people work with me for any behavior change, and not just behavior change, whether it's mind, body, spirit. I could literally work on anything. It's like, I always tell people, like, your issues may seem strange and weird to you, not me. Like, I could literally work on anything, like addictions, self-sabotage, behavior change, like relationship issues. Like, I work on hypnobirthing, past life regression. Oh gosh, like so many things.
What is? Can I just interrupt for a second? Apologize. What is hypnobirthing? Did you say
hypnosis for childbirth? Yes.
There's hypnosis for childbirth.
Yes, because, we're all programmed sometimes too, and what do women hear all the time? Like, when they're pregnant, they're getting suggestions of like, oh my gosh, childbirth is one of the most painful things you can experience. And we hear these things of like, and then everybody has a story that they tell you, and they want to imprint, it's like my birth. Everybody when they're pregnant wants to tell you their experience. And it's like, no. That is their experience. That does not have to be your experience. Like, let's visualize how you want that day to go. Let's create a birthing plan. What do you want around you? What kind of music do you want to be listening to? Let's prepare the father. Let's increase the dopamine by reliving how you guys fell in love. Like, have him tell you that story while you're going through the birth, so there's so many things and visualizations that you can do, and visualizing and all that stuff is so beneficial to the body because the body responds.
Yes.
So it's like, yes.
Words and thoughts create our reality. And it sounds like you're working with people on the subconscious level to do rewiring of belief systems, right? And pathways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is exactly what I do. It's like, okay, let's see what narrative that you've picked up that is not serving you. And I always tell people, it's like, yeah, sometimes, our parents' voice becomes our inner voice. And sometimes, it's like we tend to turn up the loudness on their negative beliefs, and their limitations, and those aren't even ours. So not only are we carrying around our baggage, we're also carrying around their baggage. It's like, nope, let's let that one go and process our own stuff. So, yeah.
Wow. And you create the safe space to do that. I think, going back to your aunt, you said something really interesting, which was that, like, you really don't judge your clients. There's nothing that it might be sounding weird to you, but it's not weird to me. Is that kind of like the space that your aunt provided for you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, growing up, my mom would have loved to see me as this prim, proper, obedient little girl, but I was wild and loud and like a tomboy and climbing trees, and that was not me. And my aunt, I believe, she just saw my spirit, my free spirit, and she just let me be, and so I truly believe that, I love holding that space for people. And I know that their journey is their journey and my journey is my journey. And we all have our own unique journeys to walk. And there is no judgment. I don't take on their journey. It's not my journey, but I'm just like a river. I just let it flow, and no backflow, no absorption. I don't take it on. And at the end of the day, I literally just release. It's not, I'm just here to help the people along their own journeys.
That's amazing. So much healing is done when we're allowed to be ourselves, like our true selves, to be free to be ourselves. And we know that we know that we're more than this body, and we are having a physical experience, in this 3D reality, but we're so much more than that. And now, the conversation is more and more people are waking up to that. More and more people are gravitating to this spiritual work, to like, okay, yeah, I can, work out, I can, drink water, eat the right foods, work on my mindset, but there's also this light body. There's also this energy body too. And that still needs to be cleansed and cleared. And so people will go see, a Reiki healer, for example, and you do Reiki, or they might go to a sound bath session because a friend recommends that to them, and then they feel really, really, really good afterwards, right? But what you're saying is that we have to do like shadow work too. We have to also not. And by the way, I felt great after the sound bowl session that I had with you. I felt like the bowls were healing me. And I walked out feeling so great. But I didn't, I wasn't impressing on myself to process my emotional stuff, so I speak for myself, and I don't want to put anybody else in this bucket, but myself can be dependent on healing modalities. I can get addicted to sound bowl sessions because it makes me feel so good. But, I understand that there is shadow work to also do too. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we definitely have to integrate, because I'll have, clients who tell me the same experience or the same thing about like, oh my gosh, I felt amazing, literally coming out of like the sound bath session. And then they'll call me or I'll receive a text like 2-3 months later, or 2-3 days later, not much, or maybe, I don't know. And they're just like, I cannot stop uncontrollable crying. And I'm like, yeah, because you realize that these things are frequency, and what it's doing is it's releasing all the stuff we have stuck in our cellular memory. So it's a whole mind body cleanse. So, and I tell them like, you need to drink lots of water. You need to flush it out. Don't be surprised if you get very emotional and you cry it out, and just let it flow and be mindful and aware of what is coming up, because it's coming up to be released. It's coming up, it's like a slate to be wiped away. So don't fight it, pay attention to it. And the thing that sometimes happens is that we don't take the time to quiet ourselves to hear those messages that are coming in. We're so distracted. And that's what happened a lot also with COVID, is that there were a lot of divorces. There were a lot of people changing jobs because this time forced people to quiet. And some people didn't know how to be alone with themselves. And, they didn't have all the distractions. So it's like, oh yeah. And I remember my spiritual advisor at the time, years before this, we would have an empath meetup group. And we would she would talk and warn us about the Great Awakening. And, it's like, okay, you guys are healers, like, get ready. The ball, shit's about to drop. Like, the ball's going to drop. Get ready. You need to center yourselves. And boy, did we experience that. A lot of my colleagues were like overwhelmed by the amount of people who had to seek out therapy because they didn't know how to process all this stuff, and they never took the time to process. And now here it is in their face, and now they have to deal with it. Being at an unhappy job, being in a relationship, it's like, oh, I don't really know you outside of work and the kids, and oh shoot, the kids are not here. Like, I don't know if I like you like anymore. Like, so a lot of people had to really face stuff. So,
yeah, like when our lives are falling apart, right? Like sometimes it means that a breakthrough is happening. Like you're renewing your life to truly finally start living again. And it's so scary to do a complete overhaul of your life. Looking inward will force you to look at those bits and pieces, and then you might have to make a decision about changing or removing some of those bits and pieces that are not necessarily working. And And sometimes it's not just one bit and piece, one little piece. It's a lot of things, because we are living in a matrix. And so it's a complete overhaul of having to deprogram sometimes the entire program. Everything you believe in.
Yes. Like you said, like it's like back to facing those shadows. It's like, okay, what things are getting in the way of us living our true purpose here on earth? Like, what is our purpose? Like, like we all have a purpose. Some people find out what that is sooner than others, but it's all living. I truly believe it's all about helping others and living a happy life of service.
Yes, to be of service. And wow, that's so profound, Grawben, to find our purpose and hopefully learn it in this timeline, which brings me to past lives. Yes, which brings me to, did you like that segue? And we think about past lives as like, maybe I had a purpose in a past life. Well, I guess I brought you here, Grawben, because I don't know how to talk about past lives. Where do I start? Where does one start with the idea the philosophy of past lives and their purpose and how they relate to us now in our current timeline.
Mm-hmm. So, okay. So, it's a belief, and, whether you believe in it or not, I always tell people, when they ask me about it, it's like, I'm not going to argue about it. I'm not going to go into like some huge debate over it. The whole purpose of it is, if it helps you heal, so be it. If there is something that you can bring back, either just from the experience of being put through a past life, or whether you truly believe that, what you saw in that deep hypnotic state, was something that, you lived in a past lifetime, cool. But at the same time, it's like, we have to remember that we have cellular memory, that gets passed on from generation to generation. So that cellular memory gets stuck in our cells. So all of these healing things of like sound healing, these are all ancient traditions. Like hypnotherapy, they had sleep temples. So all of these things have been embedded in our DNA. So past life therapy is a way for you to bring back messages that are going to help you in this lifetime. So usually people come to me and they seek out past life therapy when they have a block in this lifetime that is keeping them from moving forward, or they keep experiencing a certain event that they don't have an explanation for. They're drawn to a certain era. They love watching like war videos. Like they just have this obsessiveness about something, or it won't let them, just continue living a superior quality of life. There's something that continue to be drawn towards, so usually I'll ask them, is there a certain type of genre of music that you tend to listen to, a certain wardrobe that you're drawn to, all of these little questions, relationship issues. So, I can tell you about my experience, because when I was going to school, I still had a little bit of that religious, I don't know about this, because this is not something that I was raised with. It was kind of iffy. But at the same time, I was like, you know what? I have to be open, because people are going to come in and ask for it, because people think hypnotherapist, and then they're like, oh, hypnotherapists also do past lives regression. So I'm like, okay, my clients are going to want it, and, it's good for business. So I'm going to do it. But I remember my first client was a Spanish speaking client. So my first client ever was in complete Spanish. So talk about the pressure. I was like, oh, wow, I have to do it in Spanish, and it's my first session ever. Yeah. And he asked for past life. So I was like, okay, I reached out to a colleague and I was like, let's do this. I want to experience this. I'm going to go in with an open mind. Holy moly, was my life changed after that. I cannot tell you how real that felt, the emotion that came through. It's like, how do I make that up in the moment? It was surreal. And I've had clients who have literally given me names, last names, dates, street names, islands off of the Italy coast. Names of spouses. We've researched, how do they pull that out of thin air? It's something that is just, I don't know, a mystery. So, and there's documentaries on these things. So these things sometimes get stuck in our DNA. They get stuck in our system, and there's a lesson there. So the whole point of doing a past life regression is to take the lessons from that lifetime, or that journey or experience, or whatever you want to call it, and bring it back and see how it applies to this lifetime right now, based on what you're currently going through, because it will take you literally to the lifetime that is related to the now with what you're going through, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Learning from the past will dictate and renew our future. And
yeah.
mhm,
Yeah, and
absolutely.
we don't want to stay in the past, obviously. It's like the past is in the past. It already happened. We can't change it. And the future hasn't happened yet. So it's
Mhm.
like we need to come back to the here and the now. But if we can take something from the past to help us now, then why not? If it's going to help you move forward, if it's finally going to give you closure, I can't tell you how much closure it gave me when I did my first past life regression,
Mm.
because when I was taken to my past life and I touched down on earth, and my friend, my colleague had me look down at my feet. He's like, "What do you notice?" And I'm like, "I'm barefoot." He's like, "Okay, scan up your body. What do you notice?" And I'm like, "I'm a little girl." And he's like, "Okay, what are you wearing?" And I'm like, "I'm wearing like a white garment, a little thing." And then he's like, "Look around at your surroundings." He's like, "Where are you?" And I'm like, "I'm next to the Colosseum in Rome, in Italy." And then he started asking me, he's like, "Are you from there?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And he's like, "Do you have family?" And I was like, "I don't know." He's like, "Where do you live?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And he's like, like, "Do you know where your house is?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I realized that I was an orphan. And I did not know where my parents were. I did not have a home. I had nobody. And the emotion that came over me, like I bawled, and even to like remember it, like, and bawled and bawled and bawled my eyes out. And that was related to what I was currently going through, because, there's times where I've felt very alone, like very on my own. And it makes complete sense, like, and it makes sense that I love working with children, so it's like back to that childhood stuff where I want to take care of children. So all of the little synchronicities that you start to notice, and you're like, how do I make this stuff up? So if it helps you heal, so be it.
Grawben, thank you for sharing that. That gave me chills. And gosh, that is emotional, and it's so like almost unexplainable. It's almost like you have to experience it to explain the type of closure that it provides you, because it's almost like this secret conversation that you've only been having with yourself this entire time, your whole life. Like how you are feeling has been only described by you to yourself, but yet you're in a session and now it's out there like, wait, how is this? This has only existed in my mind, but now it's happening full circle.
You see it play out like a movie. And I remember my friend forwarded me, because at that time when I first saw myself, I was 6 years old. And he forwarded me 10 years. He's like, "Okay, now you're 16. What are you noticing?"
Wait,
And
so as a therapist, you guide and facilitate through periods of time with your client? Is that part of the process?
Within that same lifetime, you can have them move forward or move to a significant time in that lifetime that will give you the answers that you need in this lifetime. So it's like you can move forward or backward within that life to a time that will give you the answers that you need. And it's like, and then I'll re-ask them, what are you noticing now? Can you describe what you're seeing? Who is there with you? I'll ask them the questions. It's like, do you know your name? Like, do you know your last name? Like, are you married? Like, who is your family? Like, who are the people around you? It's like, did you have any unfinished business in that lifetime? Let's move forward to the day before your death. Can you describe what you're seeing the day before your death? What are you feeling in your body? And people will tell me like, "Oh, I feel," and they'll tell me, and they're like, "No wonder I have these medical issues in this lifetime." because they got stabbed in the stomach and they have irritable bowel syndrome, or they have this or that, or they have thyroid issues. I can't even tell you, like, it just, maybe they got beheaded, thyroid throat issues. Like, I've had so many people tell me, like, what they've died from. Like, oh, I got shot, I was trying to help somebody. It wasn't my time to go, like, but I'm fine. I'm content with it. It's like and I always close because it's completely safe. They're like, oh, what if I bring stuff? Nope. I always make sure to close, and it's like, no, only bring back the positives, and like leave everything else in that lifetime, and, bring back the lessons and go back up to the white light where you can process it. And, I'll re-ask them, what did you learn? How can you apply it in this lifetime? And the answers come.
And you were, so you started at 6 years old, and then the therapist, your colleague, moved you 10 years ahead. Is that, you were saying that?
Yes. So he moved me 10 years ahead and had me describe what I saw. And I remember seeing myself sitting on a hill overlooking a body of water, either a huge lake or the ocean. But I just remember seeing myself at 16 years old, kind of like hugging my knees, sitting on the end of that, on that little hill, and thinking to myself, there has to be more to this life than this. That was the thought I had. And I just remember sitting there contemplating that, or seeing that play out in that lifetime. Forwarded me another 10 years. I was 26. He's like, what happened? What do you see now? And I'm like, well, I was just wandering, nomading through the desert. And along the way, I met a prince on a horse. And, he fell in love with me. And he ended up marrying me. And we ended up ruling the kingdom fairly with love. Our people loved us. There was order, there was respect, and our kingdom had harmony. And I just remember being at the top floor of the castle, or whatever it was that we lived in. And it was like this huge open terrace with like flowing white, just tapestries. And I just remember sitting there thinking to myself, like, wow, I'm not alone. And people love me. And I'm, oh God, I mean, I can't even make this stuff up. Like, but I remember also being taken to the day before my death. And he asked me, he's like, what do you see? And I'm like, I have 3 children. They are around my death. I had 2 girls and a boy. My husband had already passed, but I was content with that. And I just remember feeling the love and not dying alone, and dying happily out of old age. But I mean, how do you describe the emotion that you feel from these experiences? It's just surreal, or maybe not.
Well, it's
yeah.
It's so real. The energy is right here, right now. I'm feeling it, and it's
yeah.
What a gift to share that with me today, Grawben. Thank you for sharing that. That was
Thank you for allowing me the space to open up and be vulnerable, because I know some people, they're like they fear what they don't know because they've only learned one certain way.
Wait. This is breaking news. This is breaking news.
Right.
I woke up today and I looked at the world. Is it, or is it them?
Yeah. Oh, I know. It's like, oh yeah. It's like people fear what they don't know. And because they're scared of it, they're like, no, she's crazy. And oh gosh, I remember speaking of crazy, when you start to open up and these things start to happen and all, I always tell people, I'm like, we don't just have 5 senses, people. Do you not realize that the Egyptians were thought to have over 300 senses? But throughout time, it's like our gifts started to, be lost. So now when you start to do the inner work and you start to quiet your mind and you start to awaken these gifts, you create like vision and intuition, and you have all these other senses. And that's what's been happening to me throughout my own healing. And because these people are still asleep, they fear these things. They fear to try. They fear to go. I did. And then I was like, you know what? I want to try it if I'm going to have a client that that wants my help with this. And man, I was able to relate to them even more. And I've done multiple past life realities. I mean, I was going to be a nun in one. I didn't get married in one lifetime. I remember being, I think also somewhere in Europe, going to the convent. And then I didn't end up doing that, but I ended up running an orphanage. And all those children were like my children, which relates to me working in behavior therapy with special needs kids. So it's like I've always had this obsession with helping kids and wanting to help in orphanages or adopt children. So it's interesting how it all plays out.
Grawben, you are an inspiration, and you just existing and being here in this timeline. And I'm going to say this, I don't think I've ever said this ever to anyone, but thank you for choosing to come into this timeline. Thank you for choosing to accept your soul contract. I know that's making me emotional too. It's making me emotional. And because I don't think, I don't believe that it's our job to, as light workers and healers, to wake people up, but to be there when they do. Thank you for being there for people when they do wake up, that they have a place to go and say, what's happening to me? Help me through this, because it's scary.
Thank you so much for seeing that and acknowledging that, because we don't hear it as healers very much, and it's like, I always make sure to check in, it's like, how are you? And it's like, I'm good. And it's like, no, but really, how are you really? So for you to just acknowledge that, Charles, thank you. Because it can get hard. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's like, we know we're not alone, and that's like the biggest gift that we have when we are light workers, and we understand like where we come from. It's like, oh yeah, we're not alone. Yet we feel alone. And the path of the healer can be lonely. We're not alone, but the path of the healer can be lonely. So we're building this community of light. And with that being said, friend, I two things to ask you. One, can I work with you? Can I have my first? Thank you. My first past life regression session. I've never had one before, ever.
You haven't?
No.
Oh my gosh, I thought you had.
Oh well, no, I haven't. But I've been told things from people that I trust who, they have gifts. They're mediums, clairvoyants, and they're like, Charles, I feel so comfortable. Can I just tell you something that's coming through right now? And they'll just say, just so you know, you were a priest in another life, and you took a vow of poverty. So just in case you've been wondering where your money blocks are coming from.
That was me when I was choosing to go into the convent, and I didn't.
And I'm like,
that whole religion thing has been there.
Yeah, so I'd love to have my first session with you. And second of all, how can anyone book a session with you? And it's not just past life regression, Reiki. We didn't even touch on shamanic ceremonial group facilitator, which I have a million questions about. We got to do a part 2 anyway of this podcast. Please come back. That's my third question. Please come back.
Yes, definitely. I would love to come back. Oh my gosh, so much. First of all, I would be honored to lead you through a past life regression session. I am so excited for that, to see what comes through for you. It is so powerful and life-changing, and man, will you completely it just takes you down a whole nother road of like, wow, like I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Yes. We have to do that. And then we have to talk about your experience and what that was like for you. So
awesome. We will.
Yeah. Yes. And then usually during during a session, it takes 2 hours because it takes, time to deepen you, and you will usually be taken between, 2 to 3 lifetimes. Depending on your experience. Obviously, if you're going through something, I'm not going to be like, okay, now let's jump to the past life. If you're going through the death scene or something, I usually have you experience that either outside your body, or you can choose to experience that inside your body. But I would love to, first of all, do that with you. And then the shamanic facilitation, that I had a mentor teach me a lot of things about healing shamanically. And I go every year up to Mount Shasta with a Huichol shaman for his retreats, and learn a lot about the Huichol tribe from Mexico, which are the keepers of peyote. So yeah, a lot of group healing in the groups and ancient traditions, and ability to heal and let go and to be guided through ancient traditions, and just to like release and connect with the elements and bring in the elements so we can remember who we are. It's all about remembering who we are at our core when we release everything else and all the imprints and everything that society is telling us that we need to be. It's coming back to heart center. That's what it's all about, being authentic in every form. It's like, okay, let's be authentic. Speak your truth. Who are you? What is your truth? What are you doing? That is your truth. What are you not doing? And what is getting in the way of that? So let's stop living for other people and start living for you. It's all about living your truth now. And if you're not, then let's get to the core issue of why you're not, or why you feel that you can't. Yeah.
So that was the day we taught everything. You can just
literally, it's like that. Yeah, that's what I do in session. It's like, whew, it's like, yeah, I can't even tell you. My client, I just had leave. She was like telling me, she's like, oh gosh, it's like with some family or friends, they'll refer me, and then they're just like, ooh, they've been in therapy their whole life, and in one session, like, you were able to go to the very root cause moment, pivotal, like, thing that took them down a different path, and now it's like exposed to them. And because it's too raw and real, sometimes it's like, oh, now I can't hide because somebody's uncovered it. And sometimes people don't want to be seen because there's a secondary gain. They're getting attention somehow, and even negative attention is still attention. And you know this from working with the kids.
Oh, yes.
So sometimes it's like, oh yeah. Sometimes I do have those clients that are like, oh, she saw me. And in hypnosis, there is no hiding. In trance states, there is no hiding. The mind takes you to exactly where you need healing, and it shows you.
Well, Grawben, thank you again for being here, for sharing your light, your wisdom, for providing positive reinforcement of the real you, of ourselves, being the cheerleader of the real you, of the real us. Thank you for that, because there is, I think, no greater positive reinforcement to use a behavior therapist term than to reinforce the you that's in you and getting us back to the real you. And getting back to the real you, how can someone find you? Do they call you? Do they book a session through the website? Who is on a path of knowing who they really are?
Yes. So for now, you're going to have to reach me directly, either through text message or by the phone, because my website is completely getting an overhaul.
Great.
So my website is mindbodypractitioners.com, but you can reach me on my business phone, which is 818-850-5522. Or you can find me on my Instagram, which is Your Personal Mind Coach, or just Google me. You'll find me. My name is so unique that I will come up. I'm like the one and only. So Grawben and Corona, like the beer or the virus or crown. Yeah. So Grawben Corona, you'll find me.
Grawben Corona, like the crown. You are royalty, my friend. Thank you for blessing me with your gifts, with your power. And yeah, you are unique. You're more unique than your name is. You're one of a kind, and I know no one like you, and I am grateful for that. It's an honor to have you here with me today, and I'm looking forward to part 2.
Yay, me too. I can't wait to put you into a past life. So thank you so much, Charles. It's been a pleasure. I love you. You are a light yourself, and you bring so much to this world. I just want to say that. So you just radiate so much goodness and love into the world, and you like light up the room. So thank you.
Well, to spreading our light, friend, thank you so much. And oh my gosh, where do we go? We go out there and we spread our light as healers, but first we got to go take care of ourselves.
Do the shadow work, and we light the way for others.
Absolutely. With love and light, my friend.
Love and light.